As a red teamer, I'm regularly sent exploits and vulnerabilities from threat intelligence which sound bad, but upon actual inspection are pretty useless. So when I was sent the BlueHammer exploit, my ears obviously pricked up. Then I read it and thought, this is an amazing piece of research, but functionally it's actually pretty useless. See, sometimes with red teaming, the juice isn't worth the squeeze. BlueHammer required very specific conditions to be present at the time of exploit, and by the time I'd wrapped my head around it, the rather complicated source code, it'd probably be patched anyway. Then, a few days later, RedSun and Undefend appear. A few hundred lines of code. Clean, minimal, very little complexity, almost elegant. A trigger. We control. The only thing currently standing between this code and full exploitation is a simple AV signature that only catches the compiled binary, not the technique itself. And I thought two things almost instantly. 1. The chimps at Microsoft working on Windows Defender have clearly been doing some vibe coding recently. 2. Red teamers and threat actors across the globe will be celebrating after seeing these releases. So let's break down what all three actually do, why BlueHammer wasn't worth the hype, and why the other two absolutely were. Let's start with BlueHammer. To pull it off, you need a Defender signature update pending at the exact moment you run it. If there's no update queued, the whole chain falls apart before it even starts. The published code has bugs in it, as described on the GitHub page, and by the time you've understood it well enough to modify it and dodge the detection signature Microsoft already pushed, you could have gotten to system 3 other ways. It works. It's just not operator-friendly. Too fiddly. Too many preconditions. Heavy use of RPC in the code, which is complicated. As I said, the juice isn't worth the squeeze for most red teamers or even threat actors. And honestly, that's probably why this one came out first. From what's publicly known, this whole situation started with a falling out between the researcher and Microsoft. BlueHammer looks less like a polished weapon drop and more like a warning shot, a proof of concept to say, I'm serious. Then the RedSun exploit dropped and things get nuclear. RedSun is a logic flaw, a missing validation check on a privileged action, one that we control the trigger for, and that second part is what makes it so much more dangerous than BlueHammer. Here's how simple the trigger is. First, the exploit monitors Windows Defender, preparing for it to begin its remediation workflow. A background thread opens the NT Object Manager directory and takes a snapshot of every hard disk volume shadow copy device currently on the system. You can see that right here in the Shadow Copy Finder thread function. Next, the exploit sets out some bait. The EICAR string right here on line 621 is stored reversed in the binary so it doesn't get statically flagged on the attacker's own machine. At runtime, the exploit flips it, writes it to a file called tearingengineservice.exe in a temp directory, then, on line 627, opens it with execute permissions. Defender scans it, detects it, and starts remediation. Here's where it gets clever. The moment the background thread sees a new shadow copy appear, confirming Defender is mid-remediation. The exploit sets a file lock on the target file. When Defender reaches out to access it during remediation, that lock breaks and signals the main thread. At that precise moment the original file gets deleted, a Cloud Files placeholder drops in its place, and then, line 657, the working directory gets renamed out of the way and recreated as a directory symlink. Line 713, right here, that symlink points straight at the System32 folder. Defender resumes its write back to what it thinks is the original detection path. The kernel resolves the symlink transparently, and Defender, running as system, writes directly to System32, replacing the tiering engine service exe. The exploit itself can't write to System32. It's running as an unprivileged process. It'd get access denied immediately. So instead, it tricks Defender into opening the door. Once Defender has written the EICAR file into System32 via the junction, the exploit starts looping to get a handle on the file. The moment it does, it overwrites it with its own executable. Then the exploit activates the Storage Tiers Management COM server, which tries to execute tiering engine service.exe as system, exactly as it normally would. Except the binary sitting at that path is now RedSun. The exploit runs again, but this time it immediately detects that it's running as system, skips the entire exploit chain, reads the target session ID from the named pipe, and spawns conhost.exe in the user's active session, delivering an interactive system shell. Next, let's analyze Undefend. This is something different and in some ways more worrying for defenders. It's not a break-in tool, it's a stay-hidden tool. Here's how it actually works. The first thing it does on startup is go straight for Defender's backup signature files, specifically mpavbase.lkg and mpavbase.vdm in the definition updates backup directory. You can see that in the try-lock backup function, it opens both files and immediately calls lockfile.ex with an exclusive lock. Those files are now held. Defender can't touch them. It then spins up two directory watcher threads. The first watches Defender's entire definition updates folder. The second watches the MRT folder in System32. Anytime a file is modified in either location, anything Defender tries to pull down or update, the update blocker thread fires immediately, opens that file, and slaps a lock on it before Defender can access it. Every new signature file that lands on disk gets locked the moment it appears. The result? Defender stays running the whole time, looks completely healthy from the outside. Task Manager says it's fine. Windows Security Center says it's fine. But under the hood, it's stuck on whatever stale antivirus definitions it had when Undefend started, and it can't update, no matter what it tries. This is why it's a threat actor tool rather than a red team one. A ransomware operator, or APT group, sitting in a network for weeks cannot afford Defender suddenly pulling a fresh signature update and flagging their tooling. Undefend solves that problem quietly, with no kernel exploit, no elevated privileges, and nothing that looks overtly malicious. It locks Windows Defender from getting new virus signature updates until removed. So what can defenders do? First, don't overreact to BlueHammer. It's an issue, but unlikely to get used practically. RedSun and Undefend you want to focus your time on. For RedSun, watch for unexpected writes into System32, where the source process is mspeng.exe. Defender writing into System32. That's not normal. That should light up immediately in any file integrity monitoring. And watch for symlink creation in temp directories. That pattern of a directory disappearing, then coming back as a mount point repass. That shows up in EDR telemetry. For Undefend, this one's quieter. It's not dropping obvious payloads. It's not doing anything flashy. It just locks things. So look for unexpected exclusive locks on Defender's signature paths from processes that aren't Defender. And if a host suddenly stops taking definition updates, don't just assume it's a network issue. So yeah, these are pretty alarming. Hopefully these get patched swiftly and the fallout is contained. If you like this video, check out this playlist next. See ya.